Hi, everybody. Welcome to Unwind Design, and thank you for joining me today for this really cute painting that we're going to be doing with string lights and an evening sky. So starting off with the materials that are in front of us, we have our primary colors, blue, red, yellow, black, and white. We're going to use these colors to make all of the colors that we're going to be using in our painting today. And we also have a large background brush, roughly about 1 inch, a detail brush, a size 8 round tip, and we have a square brush, roughly about 5/8, 3/4 of an inch. That's the brush that we're going to be using. I'm going to go ahead and start off first by placing my brushes into the water. Usually I don't advise that you do this, only because the glue does come off of your brushes if you leave them too long in the water. However, I like to leave them in the water just to leave them prepped for our painting. If you want to just kind of rinse them and put them off to the side, then you can totally do that as well. So starting off first, we are going to have a landscape that's a little bit on the darkish side, and it's fading from a light blue to a dark blue. So we're going to start off by doing that. We're going to pick up our large background brush. And I'm going to start by just adding about maybe 1/3 of the way up, a little bit of water just to prepare my canvas. Now I'm using an 8x10 canvas board, but you can feel free to use any type of canvas that you want, any size. Even a round canvas is fine. Next, I'm going to come in with a little bit of this white, and I'm just going to spread it out. I like to pick up a little bit of color off the sides of my paint. So you might notice me doing that, and I do that only because I don't want to use the center of the paint. In case I want to use some later, I have some fresh paint there. Of course, I do have a lot of it on the side, so that's not a problem. Running out is not on my mind. But for any of you at home that want to make sure you conserve your paint, just make sure that you pick it up on the sides to make sure that this paint lasts you the whole time we're painting. Okay, so I'm adding this white, and I'm using a cobalt blue. I really like a phthalo blue, but this is just a General Michaels brand cobalt blue. So I recommend this blue. It's the richest blue that you can find here next to phthalo blue. Phthalo blue is a little bit darker and richer, but we're going to be using this one to start off with. And look, when you add that white to the bottom, you add that base coat and you allow for better blending and fading. Okay, also, since we're working with a light blue, it already blends it for us the moment that we put it on our paper. So real quick, when we're painting, we want to make sure that we go very softly over the top. And that's what gives us this gradient and blending effect. The harder you go, the more lines you'll leave behind. Okay, and it's kind of messy. And we don't want that. We want a nice, smooth, blended background. And we actually want it just slightly lighter than this. So I'm going to come back, pick up more white. And picking up white off to the side also ensures that you preserve your color as pure as possible. Okay, so if you pick the white up from the corner, the blue's not really getting mixed into the rest of the white. It's getting mixed in specifically just with that blue. So I'm going to start to go up with this color. And as we start to go up, I'm going to just slightly scratch it over the top. If it looks a little messy, that's okay. Just want to get rid of any paint that we may have still on our brush. I'm going to make sure that looks as blended as possible. Okay, if it doesn't look perfect, that's okay. We're then going to come in and pick up some of that darker blue and look at the difference. I love this. We're going to pick up some of that darker blue, and we're going to go ahead and paint this top section with that. And then from the top, we're going to bring it down towards the bottom. See that? And now we're starting to get that really pretty transition and blending effect. So you want to go over the top of it nice and light. You don't want to press really hard so that you don't leave any more lines behind. Come back and pick up a little bit more blue if you want it slightly darker. And again, just bring that down nice and slow. Okay, we're starting to get that really pretty evening sky color there. And let's get it a little bit darker. So the trick is to add a little bit of black to your blue. Want to make sure we get that nice and blended, and that'll give us more of a navy blue on top so that our sky starts to look just slightly more night-ish. Okay, and if you happen to have a little bit of white in that brush, I am going to wash mine off because I don't want it to turn my color into a grayish color. So I'm going to wipe off any of that excess white that I may have so that I can just use the pure blue. Okay, and I'm going to again start to scratch from the top, and I'm going to start to work this blue downwards slowly, nice and soft, so that it starts to give you that evening sky effect. Okay, and again, we're going nice and soft over the top, making sure that this is nice and blended. There we go. I added a little bit more of that blue towards the bottom and blended it with the white just so that it would add some of that gray effect. I'm then going to come in with a little bit more of that white to brighten it up again. But see, by then we already added that gray blue. So our blues are automatically going to get a little grayer naturally. Okay, and I'm going to work this white up again to give it more of a realistic transition. And there we go. We have our sky ready to go. From here, you just need to dry this, and then we're going to move on to the next step. So from here, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our square brush, and we're going to add like a puddle, a little bit of a puddle or some water drops to the other corner of our white. Okay, we want this to be really wet, and we want the white to barely catch onto our brush. Okay, so I'm picking this up. There we go. And it's very loosely loaded. As you can tell, it's very watery. And what we're going to do is you're going to grab another utensil. Maybe if you have something in the back, you can go ahead and use it. And we're going to sprinkle some stars very lightly. Your paint has to be very wet in order for this to work. We're going to hit it from the top like we're playing the drums. Okay, this is the angle we're going on from the top. And we're going to keep it mostly towards the dark blue section of our sky. And this is what we're going to do. Make sure you keep it close. Make sure it's not too watery so it doesn't drip everywhere. And we're just going to tap this around to add some stars. Okay, and there you go. So to make any star specifically stand out, you can come in and use your round tip brush. And what we're going to do is we're going to start to work on each of these little stars individually to make some of them stand out. So right here on top, I have my brush. It doesn't have a lot of water. I just picked up a little bit of white, just a little bit. And I'm just kind of fading this circle around. You see that? So we're just wanting to fade these, whichever stars that you want a little bit bigger. You can grab a little bit of that white, and we're going to just fade them, make them a little bit bigger. Decide where you want to add these stars at. Want to make them a little bit bigger. Go, and it doesn't have to be very many of them. There we go. Then at the end, we pick up our detail brush. We pick up some of this white, and you can make some of these stars stand out by just adding a brighter center to them. You can add a couple of more brighter stars at the end and even add a shooting star by just pressing and pulling. On the left side corner here, we're going to have a little crescent moon. See that? Nice and cute. Perfect. From there, we can zoom out a little bit. And we're going to start working on our clouds. So for our clouds, we want to make sure that our background is completely dry. So I'm actually going to do that now. If you would like to pause your video and dry the back, you can feel free to do that, and we'll be right back. All right, guys, so my painting is close to being as dry as it will be for now. So the colors we're going to be using now are going to be a dark purple. We're going to go from a dark purple to a lighter reddish purple to a magenta pink at the bottom. And that's going to be because our light is still coming from the bottom towards the top. So we're going to use let's use our round tip for this, our green brush. Okay. So for our purple, we're going to be using this dark blue that we made with the black first. And then we're going to add a little bit of red to it. That should give us more of a darkish purple that we're looking for. Okay. Because black does overwhelm the color a little bit, you are going to have to add a little bit more red to it just to get the purple that we're looking for. Okay. And this is the purple right there. Okay. So again, we're going to add a little bit more of that red. Does look a little dark. There we go. Now we're getting the purple I want. From here, we're going to start to create some of these clouds, and they're going to look a little scattered. They're not going to be super perfect. Okay, we're going to start off with the top here. They're a little bit loose. We want to make them, we want to do like a circular shape with these. Let me zoom this in. And we're going to start by just being a little messy. Let's add a little bit more of that red. We're going to start being a little bit messy with it. You can add a little hint of white if it won't stand out. Just a little drop of white to give it a little bit of a vibrancy or brightness to it. There you go. See, now we have this purple that's standing out slightly more. Okay. And again, we don't want this to be super nice. We want it to be kind of loose. Want to make it look like we have these clouds off to the side there. Again, I'm going to add a little bit more of this red to it. And maybe even a little bit more white. And look at how it starts to create that highlight. Adding a little bit more red and white to that. Okay, same thing over here. Make it a little bit loose. Okay, and we're having a bigger section here. I'm going to add a little bit more red to this. And I'm going to add a little bit more blue and white even to some of this on the back. Okay, so we have some of that lighter purple there in the back. And again, this doesn't really have to look much like anything. This is just making some clouds. They're a little messy. Clouds are scattered. They don't all look the same. Okay, we do just want a variety of colors though, so that they don't all just get blended. And that comes by mixing your whites or adding more red to the purple or more blue to the purple. Okay, so from here, we're going to come in towards the left and drag in towards the right. And we're going to start to make more of a pinker purple. See that? It's just a little bit lighter. You can come in with a little bit of that pink and scratch it towards the bottom. This is where you could take that creative liberty to kind of make it your own. So these paintings are made just for you guys to kind of use as a sample. And then you guys kind of create your own version of it. Your painting doesn't have to look just like mine. If you want to change it up, if you want to add different colors, you can. It doesn't have to look exactly like this. And I'm going to use a little bit more of a pink as I start to get a little lower. I'm going to add some pink to the bottom of my cloud so it looks like it's reflecting light. And a little trick to this pink is if you add a little slide of yellow, it's going to create a peach, or depending on how much red you add, even a like bubblegumish pink, which looks great. Okay, from down here, I'm going to start to create more of a pinkish color. Again, these are getting a little bit on the scratchier end. Okay, they don't have to be perfect. As this dries, I might go in and add a little bit more of a shadow as well, just to make sure that the shadows do stand out. I don't want it to be super bright. I still want it to be sort of dark. From here, I'm going to add in another cloud towards the left, mix in a little bit of that red. And if you notice, I'm going kind of fast with it. It doesn't have to be super perfect. I'm going to add a little bit more red to this one. There we go. And then from here, I'm going to scratch it down. And I'm going to start scratching it towards the right. And again, this cloud can be a little messy. That's okay. They could all be a little messy. Okay, we can start to add a little bit more of that white underneath. And then we can wash our brush and make some of that very light pink by adding a little bit more white to our red, maybe even a little bit of that yellow to make that fluorescent pink I was telling you about, that bubblegum pink. It's like an orange with extra red on it that makes it extra vibrant. And this is the color that we get. Look at how pretty that is. Okay, so this pink color, we get to use it down here. Sort of just scratch it. It look like it's the bottom of our cloud. We can come with some more of that red and just yellow. And you can use that color for the bottom to add that extra effect of highlight underneath. See, you can add that to any part of these to create that highlight effect underneath the clouds. And then all the way at the bottom to make sure that there's an extra highlight. And it looks like the sun is really shining. We get to come in with that extra light color. And from the bottom, just add that highlight right there. And there we go. So from here, we're going to dry it a little bit. Once it dries, you can come in with a little bit more of red, a little bit more of that white, and then just a tiny bit more of that yellow. And that way it gives you that really darkish pink color we want. And we're going to start to just kind of scratch some of this pinkish color right underneath there as well. Sorry if you guys hear the door on the outside. I am in my studio right now. So we do have some traffic outside the studio, as well as my husband coming in and out. So you might hear the sound say front door open, and it's from him coming in and out of the building. So again, we're going to come in with a little bit of this pink. Okay, we're going to add a little bit more yellow and more white, and hopefully make it seem like we're getting a little bit more light on there. There's a little bit more of that yellow and white. And again, we're going to add some of that to the bottom. Okay, we're just kind of adding some highlights here. A little bit. This looks like it's getting just a little bit of highlight. Add a little bit more of that yellow and white. That makes it really look like we're getting some light down here. See that? We're starting to get that really pretty highlight underneath. See, we're just kind of adding little sections of the highlighted color. And then if you happen to have a dry brush nearby, I happen to have maybe this little square one, you can actually come in and make it look a little bit messier on the sides. Just kind of use that brush to create a little foggy effect. And that'll make your clouds look a little bit fluffier with that dry brush on top. Okay, so this is, like I said, a dry brush method. You can come in with even a little bit of a lighter color just to create this little floofiness on the top there. I know I like to say that a lot. Floofiness. So your floofiness. Okay, with a nice dry brush, no water. We're just trying to create that. I'm gonna dry it, and I'm just gonna create that little loose, flowy effect here. We don't want them to look too perfect either. So we want to come in with that darker purple and just sort of messy it up, but again, a little bit with that rougher brush. We don't want it to look too illustrative, too perfect. We want it to still look a little bit on the rough end. There we go. We got our clouds kind of standing out. For this next section, we're going to let this dry a little bit. But for this next section, we're going to be using the black underneath. So we're going to come in and just pick up our larger background brush, which is this blue one. If it has a little bit of blue, it's okay. Just make sure you take off all that water. And we're going to pick up some black. Our paintbrush should still be a little damp, so you don't really need a lot of water. Oh, and I love the way this black looks when we lay it on. So rich and creamy. And we're just going to make a large horizontal line for our horizon line. Okay, horizon line is where our sky meets our ground. And that's what we're doing right now. We're just kind of smoothing out that horizon line. Making sure this is nice and smooth. And since we're using our black, we might as well pick up our round tip brush and draw some of these lights. Okay, so from here, we're going to go about maybe 1/3 of the way down. And we're going to curve our line. And it's going to be a little bit on the thinner side. We're going to curve slightly. And then we're going to bring it up all the way to the corner of our sheet. As we come up to the corner, our lines are going to get a little bit thicker, which means we're going to press harder on our brush. When we press harder on our brush widens and gives us a natural thicker line. When we release or lift our brush higher away from the canvas, we get a thinner line. And that's what gives us this effect. It's going to make it look like it's coming from a farther location to a closer location. Okay, we can go ahead and just kind of create little boxes down up here. So there's one, let's give another skip. There's two, and these are a little closer together when they're farther away, okay? Then as we start to get closer, they start to get farther apart. Here's one, here's another one. And we start to see more details. Like in the back, it just sort of looks like these little squares are just hanging there. Once you start to get up here closer, you start to notice that there's actually a line that's holding these squares. You see that? So again, right here, let me zoom in. Straighten it out a little bit more. Want to make sure that we maintain these as straight as possible. Our lines are going to be, our circles are going to be sort of coming around straight. Want to make it look like they're sort of just hanging there. Here's another one. This one's also going around. See what I mean? And you can't really see that when you're farther away. Okay, let's go again a little closer. Let's make this one around right there. Again, there's no right way to do these. I actually made them really close up here. Finally, I'm going to do that one last one, and it's going to be that one right there. It might look a little messy at the beginning, but the more we work on it, the nicer it's going to look. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to start to form some trees. Okay, so let's start off on this end. We're going to start from the top, and let's just kind of fill in that section in the corner. And let's make it look like we have some branches coming out. Okay, these branches are not really going to be for anything, but just in case, so that we know more or less where to put our leaves. And putting our leaves is going to be fairly easy, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to use our brush's natural shape to give us a leaf. What we're going to do is we're going to press lightly, pull down, press harder, and then lift. And that automatically gives us a leaf effect. Again, sideways, pull lightly, push harder, okay? And then lift, and that gives us a leaf effect. So that's what we're going to be doing here. Okay, so I'm coming into the top. Let me zoom you in. And I'm pressing these leaves on here, okay, from the top down. Yeah, and these leaves can be any direction. They don't have to be all pointing the same way. I am going to just connect all the leaves to the center base, though, to ensure that our tree looks like it's part of the same area. Okay, we don't want to make it look like our leaves are just kind of flying there. And we want to point these downwards, want to point them up. We just want to be a little messy with them. The tree doesn't really have to look like much of anything. And we're just sort of forming it so it looks like a bush. It doesn't have to be specific. It's just some branches. Okay. Next here, again, we can even do almost like a little palm tree. Again, we can move on. Again, let's just do little dashes to create a little shape of a tree there. Okay. Next here, let's sort of like a pine tree. So we're gonna bring it up, and let's make not a pine, but a tree that kind of goes upwards a little bit. And I'm just getting my brush and creating these little scrapes as I'm going up. See that? We're starting to have these little leaves going upwards. We have this really cool tree. And to add some shadows behind these trees real quick, as a quick tip, you can come in with a little bit of that purple and just sort of add it in the background. So it looks like we got some purple leaves too, not just some black one. So it looks like we got some shade behind there. Okay, same here. Let's add a couple of blue ones in the background. Okay, and let me show you what I mean. This tree over here, I'm gonna add some purple naturally first. So I'm gonna come in, add some purple, and it really helps for a shadow effect. Okay, this one's gonna be a little bit looser. It's gonna be a little bit different. So I'm gonna come in with that purple. After I come in with that purple, then I'm gonna come in with that black again. And I'm just gonna start to add some leaves again over some of this purple. Some of the purple I still wanna shine through. See, now it looks like we have a shadow behind the tree itself. And then here I'm going to add just another little type of cone tree here, right in that background. Cool, and there we go with that black underneath. Nice. And again, use that brush to just sort of shape this. There we go. I'm getting a little too into this. That's fine. Okay, so from here, let's say I want to make some of this stand out. I can get a little bit of the blue and a little bit of the yellow to make a green. However, okay, this green is a little bit more muted. So I'm going to add just a little drop of black into it. And that's going to turn my green more into like an olive darker green. And then with this, I'm just going to very lightly press the right just to make sure that I can get some of those highlighted colors on that end. Again, I'm going to scratch maybe a little bit more. Maybe I'll add some red to it to make it look a little bit more olive. I added just a little bit more of that red. And then I'm just scratching some of this to some of these leaves on the right. See, not a lot. This one right here, maybe I'm going to add a little bit more yellow too. Same thing here. Same thing here. Just going to add a little bit more of that green. Not too much of it. Same thing here. And this is what it's kind of looking like. We do want mostly black though, so make sure that if it gets a little too green, you can come back with that black and sort of just go over it a little bit. We don't want it to be too bright. We still want it to look like a shadow. So if your green is too bright, come back with that black and just dull it a little bit more. Okay, cool. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to start to paint in our little house. So our house is a very, very, like you can't really see it that well, and that's okay. So we're going to come in and we're just going to grab a little bit more of this black, and we're just going to slightly go over this section right here, just to create a little block as to where the house is going to be located. Okay, so I'm creating sort of a little line, and then I'm creating this block here. So you can tell, wait a minute, it looks like there might be something there. Why is this being blocked off? Okay, so I'm going to add some of that block, bringing it out, brushing the bottom again, adding another little coat. Just in case that first coat was a little watery. Okay, there we go. So what we're going to do next is we're going to pick up a little bit of this purple with the red. Okay, and we are going to scratch a little bit over the top of this section. That should give us a very light purple highlight. Again, very light purple highlight. From here, we're going to make one line that way and one line coming this way, so it looks like it's the top of the house. Then I'm going to come in with the round tip brush, add a little bit more white to that purple. And I'm just going to start to add the little highlight up here. Again, a little bit more white. Again, we want this purple to be a little bit more faded than the rest of it, but we can still sort of see that there's a house there. Okay, we want to add the lighter pink to the top, the darker pink down to the bottom. And then right at the center here, we're going to want it just a little bit darker and more of a black, so that it looks like the rest of the shadow of the painting is going together. Okay, like make it look like the house is transitioning into the darkness of the shadows. Okay. And again, I'm going to come in with this round tip brush. And I'm just going to add a little bit more of that pink right here. And there we go. And there we go. From here, we're going to let it dry, and then we're going to work on the light bulbs. So moving on to our string lights, we are now going to pick up our detail brush, which is the finest brush that we have, and we're going to be making a pink. It's going to be red to the corner of our white. And we also need to make sure to add plenty of that yellow. There we go. That gives us more of a sunny effect, makes it look like the yellow is reflecting the sunlight that's underneath. And we're going to make this pink. And with this pink, we're going to start towards the left, just sort of making a line on the side of that little square we made, and then towards the right. So again, here's a line. And then we're going towards the right. Again, towards the line of this actual thing holding the bulb, and then towards the right. Towards the right of both. As we start to see the rings, we're going to start to add some lines around that ring. Oops, sorry, added it to the wrong side. Let me paint that black over again. I don't like the way that looks, so we're just going to paint over that. Cool. So using that same pink, we're going to put it on the opposite side. So to make it look like we got some light hitting it on that end. And we're going to make it look as if the string is going across it. So here's the string going across that. Nice. As we start to go closer, we even have a little bit of that line being exposed up here. Okay. And then the rest of the color, that yellow pink that we made, is going to go on the inside, getting a reflection. And then maybe underneath. So once you start to see the highlight or the line holding the string, then the line stops disappearing on the side here, and it starts appearing on the side of the lock handle. And add a little bit of that highlight towards the right. Cool. So for the center, we're going to start off at the end. The colors we're going to be using are going to be yellow with white towards the outside. And as we go to the inside, it's going to be more purely white. And that's what we're going to be doing. So we're going to do them small towards the left. And as we go to the right, they're going to get a little bit larger. So again, a little bit of that yellow and white. And then in towards the middle, we're going to add a little bit more of that white. Again, in towards the right, a little bit more of that yellow. And then in towards the middle, we're going to add a little bit more of that white. Again, towards the right, we're going to add that yellow. And we're going to be making our string lights a little bit bigger. And then in the middle, we have that white. Yellow, a little bit bigger. In the center, we have that white. Outside, we're going to do, again, the yellow a little bit bigger. And then on the middle, we're going to have mostly white. We're going to repeat this all the way down. we're going to be adding a little bit of orange lighting around these wheels on the yellow section around the outside. It's going to be one of the last things we add. And there we go. Then I'm going to add a little bit more of this yellow and orange. Highlight to the side of that house. I'm going to add a little bit more of that yellow and orange with that lighter purple. And I'm going to see if I can just drag on a little bit more of a highlight on here, so it dries just a little bit lighter. There we go. And there we go. And underneath, I'm just going to get my detail brush, get a white pen, and then just put your signature on it. Get a little bit of that white color. And look at that. There we go. After you're done with this, any other little highlight is completely up to you. I like to add just a little bit to the sides of my trees that are getting maybe some more light. So whatever's facing the bottom, I tend to add a little bit more light to. There we go. So after this is done, you're going to let this dry. And then this should be the painting that you guys end up with. Again, if you want to go in there and just add an extra little layer of that black, feel free to, just to make sure that all your ground is evened out. I do find this to be a little bit of a lighter color. So just to make sure it's all even and all the same black. Let's add a little bit more of that color. A little bit darker. With my brush, I just went over it a little bit just to bring it down a little bit so it doesn't look so much like a highlight and more like a shadow. Go clean it up. And your painting is done. Voila. There you go. Thank you guys so much for painting with me. This was a painting that I got off of Instagram. This is not one of my originals. I believe the owner for this painting's name is Jesse Robertson. You can find them on Pinterest or on Instagram. And this was one of their pieces. I just used it as a sample and helped you kind of walk through it. Hopefully you learned a little bit about blending, shadows, highlights, and how to make basic layering effects. But yeah, thank you guys so much. Again, this is not one of my originals. This is one of Jesse Robertson's originals. I just did it very quickly. Hopefully you guys can enjoy this painting as much as I did. Thank you guys so much, and I hope you have an awesome day. Can't wait to paint with you guys again. Bye.